Welcome to Insider's Guide to Getting into Graduate School. I'm Dr. Jim Calvert. And what we're going to be talking about in this course is how you can decide what field you want to go into in mental health, such as, do you want to be a psychologist? Do you want to be a counselor? Do you want to be a marriage and family therapist, maybe a social worker? We're going to go over all those fields and determine, how do you decide which one you'd like to do? How do you find the graduate program that's best for you? And then how do you apply to those graduate programs to give yourself the best chance of getting into graduate school? What we're going to go through is step by step each one of those. I'm going to talk to you about, how what do you need to know about getting into the field? And then what do you need to know about applying to the field? The reason it's an insider's guide is because I've done all of these different steps. I've been on the faculty to decide which graduate students we were going to accept. I've been on internship and postdoctoral fellowship teams where we decide who we're going to accept into those programs. And I've been the person responsible for hiring psychologists, social workers, and counselors after they're already licensed. So I've been in all of those settings. And what I want to tell you during this course is, what are we thinking during those times? So we'll go over what are the basics of it, like, what does your resume need to look like? And, and what are the questions that they might ask you in an interview? So we'll talk about all those, but I'm also going to tell you about, what are we thinking when we're in there and we're listening to your responses or we're reading over your resume? What are we looking at and what are we thinking about at the time? Because sometimes what the research tells you are the most important aspects. It's not that those aren't the most important or that they aren't very important. It's what they miss is, what are we really thinking about things? So for example, sometimes people will tell you that grades aren't nearly as important as other things, but grades really determine as to whether we get to see the other things like letters of recommendation. So we're going to talk about all of those things during this entire course. Now, why am I the one? Well, I've already told you that I've been in the field and I've been at all levels in terms of making these decisions. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist. I've been a licensed psychologist for over 30 years, and I've seen a lot of clients, and I've worked in interesting settings. So I've had my own private practice. I've worked in psychiatric hospitals. I've worked in, residential treatment facilities, outpatient, nonprofit organizations. I've been the executive director of nonprofit organizations. So I've done a lot of these different things, including being a faculty member. And so since I've also worked and I'm currently on the faculty at Southern Methodist University, but I've worked at 8 different universities. So I can tell you a little bit about getting into graduate school from lots of different levels, because I've taught psychology, I've taught in School of Social Work, and School of Counseling. So the things that are required for you are things that I can give you some insights into. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to do this. I get students coming to me, a couple a week at least, at the university asking me, how do I decide what graduate program I want to go to? And the number of graduate students who are uncertain, or I should say the number of undergraduates who are uncertain what they want to do for graduate school is huge. And in fact, many, they kind of know they want to go on to graduate school. They know they want to do something in mental health, but they don't really know what it is. I've had students come to me and say, well, I heard it's 5 years to get your PhD. Now that's the minimum number to get your PhD after your undergraduate, but they thought it was 5 years total, meaning that they would do 4 years of undergraduate, then 1 year, and they would have their PhD. So there's a lot of misconceptions about what is required, and I want to help you kind of get through all of those things. If you ever have any questions at the end, I run a small business where I do consulting to help people decide what they'd like to do, and help coach you through what you need to do to get into graduate school. So that's something that after you listen to this entire presentation and you take this course, you can decide whether you have enough answers for yourself or do you need any more. So let's move ahead, and I will start in and we'll talk about all the different programs and what they might look like. All right, these are the common mental health fields that we're going to be discussing. Now, if you're not interested in any of these fields, it's still possible that you will get something out of this course, because I'm going to be talking about basic things about resumes, how do you do interviews, And so there's a lot of things that, even if you're not interested in mental health, you might be interested in some of those other topics that are consistent across any discipline that you would like to go into. But let's focus on the mental health fields, because that's the area that I'm the expert in and that I can give you a lot of information about. Now, we're going to spend more time with the last 5 of these than the first one, but I wanted to mention psychiatry because psychiatry, of course, is an important one in the field of mental health. And this is where you would get your medical doctorate or doctor of osteopathy. And we'll talk more about that. Then we'll talk about clinical psychology. I'm a clinical psychologist. That's my background and my degree. We're going to talk about counseling psychology as well, which is closely related. And in fact, over the years, it's become so closely related that sometimes it's difficult to tell the difference between a clinical psychologist and a counseling psychologist. Then we'll talk about counseling, which is completely different than counseling psychology. It's its own field. And a lot of people don't realize that, but we'll take ourselves through that. Then we're going to talk about marriage and family therapy, which you can actually get a separate degree in marriage and family therapy, or sometimes it's a specialty area or a track within counseling. So that's possible. And then we'll talk about social work. A lot of people think of social work as, being like case managers or maybe in administration, but a lot of social workers are clinical social workers, and they actually see people in therapy just like the other professions do. So I'll take you through all of those, and we'll discuss what's required for each one, and then we'll go into kind of selecting those programs.